Okay, so today we are at Go Math 11.4 and we're talking a little bit more about how to find the surface area of something. So as we move through, we're realizing the surface area, if it is a rectangular prism, we have a couple different options. First thing that we can do is look at the front, and then the right, and then the back, and then the left, and then the top, and then the bottom, and we can make it a net. Or if it were something like 3 times 2 times 4, we could fill all those numbers in. The other thing that we could do is look at the first box. That's 3 by 4. We could look at the second one, which would be 2 by 4. And we look at the third one, which is 3 by 2. That's the bottom part right in here, right? I could solve all of those and then realize if I have a top, I have a bottom. If I have a left, I have a right. And if I have a front, I have a back, right? So I could solve those. So I can take it apart, or I can break it up into the shapes that I know. And that's very helpful because when I'm dealing with 11.4, we're going to take it one step further into pyramids. So I have a couple different options for pyramids here. I have this one here. This is a square pyramid because the bottom is, or the base, is a square. The other option that you might come across would be a triangular pyramid, and of course the bottom then would be a triangle. So I asked myself a little bit about what is it that I actually want to solve for, what shapes do I have? So again, we've talked about base. That's now the entire bottom that we're discussing, the entire bottom. These sides are what are called lateral faces. Lateral faces, they're the part that's looking right at you, and lateral on the side, right? So these sides, when they talk about lateral area, they're talking about the whole area around that pyramid, right? So this is a lateral face. Now, if I want to break that apart, I'm just going to go with a square pyramid for right now. I look at my square pyramid, and I ask myself, what is the base? And the base, of course, is a square. So I draw a square. From there, I could open that up. So like a sci-fi movie, they would all open up. And I get 1, 2, 3, 4. And I could solve all the areas of that. What I like to do, which is a little bit shorter, and this is something that you prefer, by all means do it. But I like to simplify my life a little bit. So I'm going to show you a little shortcut that I use. What I do is I look at the base and I said, okay, there's the base. And let's say our base is maybe 3 by 4. Okay? So I know that my base is 3, and it's a square, so that's also 3. The other shape that I have is a triangle. And my triangle has a base of 3 and a height of 4. So area equals length times width, or base times height, 3 times 3, or 9. This verifies that I'm writing down the formula because I know what I'm solving for, and I can go back and check my work, right? There's no simple mistakes that were being made here. Biggest mistake that I see is people get into this habit and they go, oh, area of this is 3 times 4. But what is the formula for area of a triangle? Area equals 1/2 base times height, or length times width, 1/2 times 4 times 3. And I flip them because 4 is easier. Due to the commutative and associated properties of multiplication, I can move these numbers around because I'm multiplying straight through them, right? That's 2 times 3, and that, of course, will give me 6. So I know that this is 6. The area of this is 9. Area equals 6. And then I ask myself, and this is the important part, how many triangles do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 4 of them. So 6 times 4 sides, and I get 24, plus 9 for my base, and I end up with 33. That would be my overall 33 units squared, because we're talking about area. Okay? So it's very, very important that as you move through all of these, you're breaking the problem down and you're understanding what it's asking you for. So let's take a look at what that shows up as in your book. So I'm labeling the dimensions of the net of my pyramid. So I know that I have a square in the bottom, so I'm going to have 4 sides to my pyramid. If I come over here, I will draw one. And I hear from people, well, Mr. W, I am not good at drawing 3-dimensional shapes. That's okay. There's some in your book, you can trace them, or stop and ask yourself, I have a base, and I have a triangle. And I can solve those. But just remember that this, 1, 2, 3, 4, I have 4 of them. Okay, make that note. Don't forget to do that. So if this is 3 and this is 7, all right, so now I know that this is 3 and 3, and I know the base of this is 3 and the height is 7. Don't forget, you must take the height off of a 90-degree angle. So if I took a ruler and I laid it out here and I held it up to my head and I said, well, I'm 9 feet tall, you would obviously say that's ridiculous. And it is ridiculous because I'm not 9 feet tall. You say, what do you have to do? You have to stand it up straight and then measure it, and then you'll see how tall you are. So now you understand why we have to use a 90-degree angle. We can't use the side. And I end up with 7 times 3, so area equals 1/2 times base times height, 1/2 times 7 times 3, or, 3.5 times 3. Mr. W, can I use a calculator for this? Of course you can. You can use a calculator. I recommend. No, I don't recommend. I require you to write this down. I want to see the formula. I want to see the steps. I want to see your work on a piece of paper. Okay? 3.5 times 3 gives me 15, 10, 10.5. All right, so now I know that this area is 10.5. But again, I have 4 of them. So I take 10.5 times 4, and I end up with 4 times 0 is nothing, plus 2 is 2. 4 times 1 is 4. Okay, so double checking. I have 1 digit to the right of a decimal in my problem, so I have 1 in my answer. Now I know what all 4 of my triangles will equal, so I need to know what my base is. Well, area equals base times height, 3 times 3, or 9, right? So now I need to take my 42, and I'm going to add my 9 to it, and I realize that I get 51 as my area total. And so this doesn't have an actual unit to it, so I'm going to call it units squared. So there's our surface area. Okay, so the biggest thing that you need to focus on is, again, what shape do I have? Is my base a square? Is my base a triangle? Separate it. So draw it as a net. If you're not somebody who's comfortable drawing it as a net, practice. And if you're not really sure where to go from there, maybe this is a bit much for you. Break it down into the basic shapes, but just realize how many sides you have, right? So that you know all of the triangles that you would need to factor into. Take the time. I want to see your work. I want to see your formula. And I want to see your overall answer written nicely.